The following account was taken from real testimonies. Names and details have been altered for privacy.
I wish I could say I planned it. I wish I could tell you I studied the maps, checked the weather, traced every route with confidence. But the truth is simpler and much more embarrassing. I just followed the wrong trail marker and kept walking, thinking the path would eventually make sense. It didn't. That was how I ended up on the wrong mountain. And that was where I spent 2 nights I'll never forget. I started the hike early before sunrise, hoping to catch the clouds brushing against the peaks like I'd seen in photos. The air was still cold when I left the village. My shoes were dry, my backpack light. I felt strong, alive, confident. At the first junction, I hesitated. There were 2 paths, one marked red, the other marked yellow. The hostel owner had told me, follow the yellow markers, always the yellow. But in the early morning light, they both looked yellow, and so I chose, and kept choosing, without realizing that I had been wrong since the very first turn. Sometimes you don't notice your mistake right away. Sometimes it takes miles. The forest got quieter the higher I climbed. Even the wind felt distant. I passed no one, not a hiker, not even an animal. After 3 hours, I realized something strange. I couldn't remember the last time I had seen a trail marker. I kept walking anyway. Maybe that's the human instinct to keep moving until we are absolutely certain we can't anymore. I told myself I would turn back if I didn't find a sign soon. Instead, I found a ridge that opened into a breathtaking valley. And that view convinced me I was still on track. That was the moment the wrong mountain welcomed me. I just didn't know it yet. I found an abandoned shepherd's hut at sunset. One broken window, a rusted shovel by the door. No roof on the left side, but it was shelter, and when the temperature started dropping, a cracked roof is better than no roof at all. My phone had no signal. My water was half gone, my legs trembled. That's when it hit me. No one knew I was here. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I just sat against the wall and listened to the quiet. There's a moment on any journey when excitement fades and reality takes over. For me, that moment happened on the floor of a hut on a mountain that wasn't supposed to exist on my map. I didn't sleep much. The wind howled through the broken window. I kept waking up thinking someone or something was outside, but there was nothing. No animals, no hikers, not even footprints, just wind, and a mountain with no name. I woke to silence, a sky the color of metal. My breath visible, my fingers numb. That morning, I stopped pretending. I was lost. I tried to retrace my steps, but the ground looked different. Even the trees felt unfamiliar, as if they had rearranged themselves while I slept. It was only then I noticed how soft the earth was beneath the moss. How easy it would be for footprints to disappear overnight. When you realize you're lost, things happen to your mind. You search for someone to blame. You stop thinking clearly. I blamed myself. Then I walked in the wrong direction for 2 more hours. When I finally made it back to the ridge, I checked my phone again. 1 bar. Not enough to make a call, but enough to receive one message that had come through at some point during the night. Did you reach the summit yet? Send pics if you can. Enjoy the view. I stared at it for a long time, not because it helped, but because it was the last reminder of a world that didn't know where I was. That was when fear finally began to whisper. I built a fire. I hadn't made one in years. The wood was damp. The matchbox had only 5 matches left. The third one caught. I sat beside the flames until the stars came out. They looked closer from up there, like they weren't in the sky but just above the mountain, watching. There is something strange about spending a night in a place not meant for humans. You feel both incredibly small and uncomfortably visible. I didn't sleep, but I stopped being afraid. There was a point sometime after midnight when I understood something. Being lost is scary, but accepting you're lost is the beginning of finding your way. And that was the moment I finally made a plan. Not a confident one, not a certain one, but a plan built on the only truth I had left. I couldn't stay on this mountain another night. I needed to walk. Anywhere but here. The sky was pale when I woke up, as if the colors had drained during the night. My body felt heavy, every joint stiff, legs aching from sleeping on cold ground. For a moment, I forgot where I was. That was worse than remembering. Because when the memory hit, it hit all at once. I was still on the wrong mountain, and my water bottle was almost empty. I didn't panic, not loudly, Panic rarely comes loudly. It begins quietly, like a voice you can almost ignore. I followed every stream sound I heard, learned quickly that not all sounds on a mountain lead to water. Sometimes you're just chasing wind moving through rocks. By midday, I could barely walk in a straight line, but I kept moving. Because movement was the only thing that felt like a decision. I remembered something once told to me by a guide in Nepal. When you're lost, don't look for roads. Look for signs of people, so I looked. I scanned the ground for footprints, tree markings, broken branches, anything that memory could not create. For hours I saw nothing, and then I found it. A boot print, not very clear, not very new, but real. I followed it. And then another appeared, and another. There wasn't a trail, not really. Just the trace of someone who had passed through, someone who might have been lost once too. And step by step, I felt something return that I hadn't felt since leaving the village 2 days earlier. Hope, a quiet one, fragile, but alive. I hadn't eaten properly in 24 hours. My legs started to shake uncontrollably, like they were asking me a question I couldn't answer. I reached a fallen tree, sat, closed my eyes. Not to rest, but because I suddenly realized how easy it would be to give up. Not die, just stop trying. It hit me then. Mountains don't kill people quickly. They kill slowly, through silence, confusion, and delay. I took my last sip of water and said something out loud, to no one. I'm not staying here. My voice sounded weak, but it was real. And sometimes the voice you hear from yourself is the only proof that you're still fighting. I stood up and walked again. Late afternoon, I found something that didn't belong to nature. A red string tied around a pine branch, not bright, not new, but human. Then 20 meters ahead, another one. And another. Someone had marked a path. I followed those red strings like they were lifelines, because they were. They led me down a steep slope that felt endless, sliding more than walking, grabbing roots, scraping my hands and knees. But near sunset, I saw something that felt like a miracle. A fence, old, rusted, human. And beside it, a trail marker, yellow. The one I should have followed days ago. My legs nearly gave out. I didn't cry. But if someone had spoken to me then, I think I might have. I reached a small ranger station just after dark. The ranger didn't speak my language. But he saw my face, and he knew everything. He gave me water, a blanket, a seat by a heater. And then, with a soft voice I didn't understand, he said something that I did understand, not as words, but as meaning. You made it off the wrong mountain. That is enough for today. And for the first time in 3 days, I slept without fear. They let me sleep in a spare room above the ranger station, one bed, one blanket, one small window looking toward the mountain I had escaped. I didn't sleep much, my body did, but my mind didn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the ground shifting underneath me. Every time I heard wind against the window, I expected a tree branch tapping on the broken hut wall. Survival doesn't end the moment you're safe. It ends when your body believes it. By sunrise, I knew one thing for sure. I didn't want to climb mountains for a while. They drove me halfway down the valley in an old pickup truck. The rest I walked. It wasn't far, but my steps felt different. I didn't rush, didn't check my phone. I just walked. On that road, relief didn't come all at once. It came quietly like light filtering through fog, a little stronger every mile. When the village finally came into view, I stopped walking and just stood there, looking at it. Letting the sight replace the fear of being lost. Letting reality overwrite the memory. That's when I realized. Nothing looks more beautiful than the place you thought you'd never see again. The hostel owner froze when he saw me at the door. Where did you go? He asked softly. I didn't answer immediately, because the truth was simple and complicated at the same time. I chose the wrong marker. And then I kept choosing it. He looked at me a long time. Then without another word he put his hand on my shoulder. That was the moment I understood something important. For the first time since leaving, someone understood me without needing the whole story. Sometimes people don't need to hear everything. They just need to know you came back. Some parts were easy to describe. The broken hut, the slope, the cold. But there were other parts I couldn't translate, like the moment I almost stopped moving. The echo of my voice when I said I'm not staying here. The kind of silence that feels heavier than fear. I learned that not every detail fits into words. Some things stay on the mountain, even after you leave it. That afternoon, I sat outside the hostel and looked up at the mountain. From the valley, it looked calm, almost gentle. Nothing like what I remembered. A young traveler asked me if I recommended the hike. I looked at him and said, "Depends which mountain you take." He laughed, thought it was a joke. I didn't explain. It took 2 nights to feel lost. It took 1 sign a yellow marker to be found. But it took much longer to understand what really happened. That mountain wasn't dangerous. That trail didn't try to trap me. The mistake was simple. I assumed I knew where I was going. And then I ignored every sign that said otherwise. I thought getting lost would look dramatic. But it looked like this: 1 wrong turn, and hours of confidence. Getting lost doesn't always come with fear. Sometimes it comes disguised as certainty. There are 2 kinds of mountains: the ones you climb on purpose, the ones you discover only after it's too late. Both teach you something. But only one stays with you when you're back among people. That was the wrong mountain, but it showed me something true. You don't always need to know where you're going. But you should always know when you're no longer on the right path. And if that moment comes, listen to it. Turn back. Ask for help. Because mountains don't punish mistakes. They wait for them. I didn't hike again for weeks. Not because I was afraid, but because I was listening. I walked through towns, sat in cafes, heard distant conversations. Life moved normally around me, but something inside me had slowed down. It was like I had stepped off a moving train, and the world didn't realize I was no longer on board. People said, "That must have been scary." And I nodded politely, but fear wasn't what stayed with me. What stayed was the awareness of how easily we ignore signs. Not just on mountains, but in our own lives. I thought of every warning I'd once overlooked, every instinct I'd silenced. Every time I said, "It's fine, I'll keep going." That was the same voice that led me up the wrong trail. Maybe we all have a mountain inside us, the one we climb only when we forget to pay attention. I began noticing things, tiny details I used to rush past. The sound of gravel under my shoes, the difference between hunger and tiredness. The way people hesitate before they lie and how their eyes look just before they tell the truth. Being stranded didn't make me fearful, it made me present. One evening, weeks later, I walked out of the village and stopped where the trail starts. The same place I had once begun, full of confidence and ignorance. I stood there a long time. I didn't step onto the path. I didn't start another hike. I just watched hikers heading up into the hills. Each with their own reason for walking. Their own fear of stopping. Their own mountain waiting to test them. I didn't envy them. I didn't pity them. I just wished them something simple. May you choose the right trail before it chooses for you. Looking back now, I don't hate that mountain. I'm grateful for it. I used to think survival meant pushing forward until the end. But sometimes survival means recognizing you're no longer on the path meant for you, and allowing yourself to turn back. The mountain didn't beat me, it humbled me. It showed me how fragile confidence is, how loud silence can become, and how quickly a wrong decision can become your destination. But it also showed me one more thing: strength isn't walking until you collapse. Strength is stopping when it no longer makes sense to continue, and that is a lesson worth carrying. I used to think courage meant never getting lost. Now I know, courage is admitting when you are. The wrong mountain didn't steal anything from me. It gave me something I never knew I needed. A new way of listening, a new way of walking. A new way of choosing which roads deserve my feet, and which ones don't. I don't tell this story to prove I survived, I tell it to remind myself. The moment you realize you're on the wrong path is the moment your real journey begins. That mountain didn't punish me, it simply waited. Until I was ready to pay attention. And now, when I step onto any trail, I don't ask, "How far will I go?" I ask, "Is this truly where I want to walk?" Because being strong isn't walking the farthest. Being strong is knowing when to turn back. That's what happened when I spent 2 nights stranded on the wrong mountain. And that's how I finally found my way back.